INFJs are often called the mystics or counselors. And it's not just because they're quiet or introspective. It's because they live with a kind of depth that even they can't always explain. People around them may feel like they know the INFJ well. After all, they're such good listeners, so present, so attuned. But here's the truth. No one ever really knows everything that goes on inside an INFJ's mind. There are parts of them they guard fiercely. One of the biggest secrets INFJs never tell anyone is just how lonely they often feel. Not in the typical sense of needing more people around, but in the deeper, aching sense of not feeling fully seen. They can be surrounded by friends, family, even a loving partner, and still feel like a part of them is existing in another dimension, one that no one else can access. They see connections between things others overlook. They feel emotions with a kind of intensity that's hard to put into words. And sometimes, it's easier to hold it all and then try to explain it and be met with blank stares or shallow responses. To unlock the power of your INFJ personality, check out our INFJ Mastery Course now. The link is in the description of this video. Another thing they keep to themselves, how often they feel emotionally exhausted. Because INFJs are emotional sponges. They absorb other people's feelings without even trying. They walk into a room and can immediately sense the tension, the unspoken sadness, the joy beneath someone's smile. And while this makes them incredible empaths, it also wears them down. Most INFJs won't admit just how much effort it takes to keep showing up for others while quietly carrying the emotional weight of everything and everyone around them. They also rarely admit how sensitive they truly are. People might see them as strong, put together, grounded. And they are. But underneath all of that is a soul that bruises easily. A soul that overthinks every offhand comment, replays every interaction, and wonders if they're too much or not enough. They've been hurt in ways they've never spoken about. And because they don't want to seem dramatic or needy, they keep it all tucked away behind a carefully managed exterior. INFJs also tend to hide their dreams. Not because they don't have them. On the contrary, their dreams are vivid, expansive, often decades ahead of their time. But those dreams are sacred. They hold them close, afraid that saying them out loud will either jinx them or invite the kind of skepticism that makes them shrink. They've probably already had the experience of being told they're too idealistic, too emotional, too deep. So now, they carry their vision like a secret flame, quietly, faithfully, waiting for the right moment, or the right person, to let it burn a little brighter. Then there's the secret fear that they're somehow too much for this world, too intense, too complicated, too serious. They don't always share how much time they spend trying to tone themselves down, smiling when they want to cry, nodding when they want to question, staying quiet when something inside them is screaming. They don't want to make others uncomfortable. So they mold themselves into what's needed. The good listener, the calm one, the one who understands. And while that makes them beloved, it also leaves them feeling like no one really knows them. INFJs are also deeply intuitive, and that can be both a gift and a burden. They often pick up on things before there's any tangible evidence. They know when something's off in a relationship, even if nothing obvious has happened. They sense people's true motives. They feel when someone's about to leave, or when a storm is coming, emotional or otherwise. But they rarely say anything, because they've learned that being right too soon makes people uncomfortable. So they sit with their knowing, quietly, and when the truth finally comes out, they simply nod, because deep down, they already knew. Another secret is how deeply they love. INFJs don't love casually. They love with their whole being. When they let someone in, it's not just an emotional connection. It's spiritual, energetic, soul level. But most people never realize just how much love they've been given, because INFJs show it through presence, through patience, through sacrifice. They'll remember the things you forgot you said. They'll notice when your eyes look tired, even if your words say you're fine. They'll hold your pain in their chest like it's their own. And if that love is ever betrayed or mishandled, they won't lash out. They'll just disappear, and you'll never know the depth of what you lost until it's too late. One of the most sacred secrets INFJs keep is how often they feel like they're living in two worlds at once. There's the external world, the one where they show up, go to work, keep up conversations, meet expectations. Then there's the internal world, vast, rich, emotional, layered with meaning. It's where their thoughts swirl endlessly, where they analyze everything they've said, everything that's been said to them, and everything not said that still somehow meant something. It's the world where they retreat to make sense of life, to feel safe, to breathe. But that dual existence can be isolating, because no matter how connected they seem on the outside, there's always a quiet ache on the inside, an ache for someone to meet them in that inner space, not to fix it, not to solve them, but to sit there with them and say, I see you, all of you. Most people don't make it past the first few layers, and INFJs have come to expect that. So they give pieces, never the whole. They offer glimpses, never the full view. And that's a secret they carry in silence, the longing to be fully known and the quiet resignation that maybe they never will be. Another truth they rarely speak is how exhausted they are from always being the strong one, the wise one, the calm one. People lean on them, friends, family, even strangers, because there's something about the INFJ's energy that feels steady, grounding. But what no one sees is that they're often running on empty, that the emotional labor they do is invisible but heavy, that while they're holding everyone else's stories, they're silently wondering, who hold mine? They'll never admit how often they cry in silence, how they'll excuse themselves from the room to fall apart, only to return moments later with a composed smile. They've mastered the art of emotional containment, but it doesn't mean they don't feel. In fact, they feel so much that if they were to let it all out at once, it might flood the room. So they regulate. They release slowly, quietly, and alone. INFJs also carry the secret pain of feeling misunderstood, even when they're surrounded by people who love them. It's not that others don't care. It's just that the INFJ's emotional and mental world is so layered, so nuanced, that it rarely translates into words that others fully grasp. They may laugh along in group settings, listen intently in conversations, nod at all the right moments. But inside, there's often a disconnect, a quiet sense of I don't quite belong here. Not because they don't want to, but because they're tuned into a frequency that most people aren't even aware exists. They also hide how many times they've swallowed their truth to avoid conflict. INFJs crave harmony, and not the fake kind, the real, deep, emotional safety kind. So they'll often choose silence over speaking their pain if they sense the other person won't receive it well. They'll minimize their needs, downplay their discomfort, and pretend they're okay just to keep the peace. But inside, it chips away at them. And by the time they do speak up, it's often after months, sometimes years, of carrying the weight alone. There's also the quiet heartbreak of letting people go without closure. INFJs don't always get the apologies they deserve. They don't always get explanations or endings that make sense. But they still let go, not for the other person's sake, but for their own sanity. They process the ending internally, grieve the potential that was never met, and move forward with a quiet kind of grace. But what no one sees is the way those losses echo, the way the absence of closure creates its own kind of scar. To unlock the power of your INFJ personality, check out our INFJ Mastery course now. The link is in the description of this video. Another secret INFJs carry is how often they question themselves. Despite their insight, despite their intuition, despite their ability to guide others, they doubt. They wonder if they're too sensitive, too withdrawn, too hard to understand. They second-guess their value in a world that rewards noise over depth. They compare themselves to people who seem to move through life with ease and wonder, why do I feel everything so deeply? Why does the world feel like too much for me sometimes? And because they don't want to seem fragile or dramatic, they keep those questions to themselves. But even with all that quiet pain, all that depth, all those secrets, INFJs continue to show up. They continue to love, even when it hurts. They continue to believe in people, even after being let down. They continue to hope for a world where depth is welcomed, where emotions aren't weaponized, where someone, just one person, might look at them and see everything they've never been able to say. Another secret INFJs rarely speak of is how deeply they internalize everything. Not just events or words spoken to them, but even things that happen around them. A stranger crying on the train, a friend posting something heartbreaking online, a character in a movie suffering quietly. These things don't just touch an INFJ, they stay. Long after the moment has passed, they carry it. And the hardest part is they often have no one to talk to about it, because when they try to express the weight of what they're holding, it sounds like too much to someone else. So instead, they store it quietly in the corners of their mind, and you'd never know by looking at them just how much they're carrying. They also hide how much they long for emotional safety. INFJs are independent, yes, but they deeply desire a space, just one, where they can completely fall apart without judgment. A person they don't have to explain themselves to. A bond that doesn't need disclaimers, that doesn't require them to overthink every word. They want a soft place to land, but they rarely ask for it, because so many times, when they have, they've been disappointed, misunderstood, told they were being too sensitive. So instead of asking, they create that space for others, hoping that maybe, one day, someone will recognize that they need it too. There's also the secret fear that their presence is a burden, not because anyone tells them that, but because they're so aware of everyone's emotional temperature. If they sense that someone is tired, distant, or emotionally unavailable, they immediately shrink. Not because they don't have needs, but because they don't want to add to the weight. So they self-edit. They say they're fine. They carry their own pain so gracefully that no one realizes they're hurting. And afterward, they sometimes sit in quiet frustration, wondering why no one sees them, but also blaming themselves for making it so easy to overlook. INFJs rarely tell you how often they feel torn between who they are and who they're expected to be. They may be in a job that looks successful, but feels soulless. In a friendship that seems fine on the surface, but lacks emotional depth. In a life that checks all the boxes, yet still feels slightly out of tune with their spirit. But instead of complaining, they reflect. They endure. They tweak things slowly, carefully, hoping to realign without disrupting the peace they've worked so hard to build. All the while wondering, is there more to life than this? They also won't admit how painful it is when they open up and someone responds with indifference. INFJs don't share easily. When they do, it's an offering, a piece of their inner world handed to you with reverence. So when that's met with apathy or brushed off with humor, something inside them closes. It may look like they're okay, but inside, they've taken a mental note. This is not a safe place. And from that moment on, they give less, not out of bitterness, but out of protection. And let's talk about their secret rituals, the ways they self-soothe when no one's watching. INFJs often have little habits they never tell anyone about. Journaling into the night, replaying old songs that match their mood, watching the same movie for the 5th time just to feel something familiar, sitting in complete silence, staring out the window, thinking about things they'll never say out loud. These small, sacred moments aren't just habits, they're survival. They're how they stay sane in a world that often feels overwhelming and overstimulating. INFJs are also masters at hiding when they're emotionally spiraling. They can smile, work, show up for others, and seem completely fine, while internally unraveling. They'll tell themselves you don't have time to fall apart, so they keep going, until eventually the silence gets too loud, the weight too heavy, and they break, but always behind closed doors. Because falling apart in front of someone else feels unsafe. It feels like too much. It feels like vulnerability without a guarantee of safety. They don't speak these secrets because they've learned that most people won't understand them. Or worse, they'll minimize them. So they protect their truth. They wrap it in softness. They offer you kindness instead. Because even when their heart is tired, even when they're carrying more than anyone knows, they still choose to love, still choose to serve, still choose to show up. To unlock the power of your INFJ personality, check out our INFJ Mastery course now. The link is in the description of this video.